Well, that was a pretty horrendous storm last night. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. Oh, let's see. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. What's happened? That's not the view I was expecting. Oh, but there's a cute little worm over there. I wonder if it wants to be friends with me. Hello everybody, welcome to the re-review, the series where I get to replay and reassess games from my favourite gaming era. I'm Brian, also known as UK Jen Zoidberg, and we're once again here to talk about an Amiga game chosen by our channel VIP members. Although today's game is one that I didn't actually review myself, I was in the GamesX office the first time that it was brought in for review, and so therefore I was able to witness everybody's reaction to it. If you want to get involved with the vote for August's game, please do check the video description for our membership offer and wait till the end of this video where I'll reveal the two games that you can choose between. The game that won the vote for July though, and the one that we're here to talk about, is Another World, which was developed by Delphine Software and released by US Gold in early 1992. The first time I became aware of Delphine Software was when I played the point-and-click adventure game Future Wars on the Atari ST. It was a game that was notable for its atmospheric visuals, but I personally remember it for its frustrating puzzles that would occasionally require you to click on a single pixel on the screen. Published in the UK by Palace Software, this was actually one of 3 games that arrived in 1989 from the developer, the other 2 being BioChallenge and Castle Warrior. The Paris-based company had been founded the year before by Paul Cuisset, who had just finished the Atari ST version of Space Harrier. Future Wars was followed by 2 other acclaimed point-and-click adventure games. First up was the globe-trotting espionage thriller Operation Stealth, which was actually retitled James Bond: The Stealth Affair in some countries, and then there was the excellent Agatha Christie-style murder mystery Cruise for a Corpse, released in 1991. That game featured 3D characters brought to life through the use of rotoscope animation, the same technique that had been used for Prince of Persia. That gave the game a unique look, and it would go on to become the graphical style that Delphine would be most well known for. Another World, also known as Out of This World in the US, was the next game that they produced, and it was designed by Eric Chahi, who had previously been the graphic artist on Future Wars. It saw you play as a scientist called Lester, who had to survive on an alien planet after an experiment went wrong. The game was an instant success, and over the years has gone on to be converted onto almost every gaming system that you can think of. A follow-up to Another World was put into development almost straight away by the US publisher Interplay, although there was minimal input from the original designers. Titled Heart of the Alien, it was released for the Sega CD at the tail end of 1994 in North America. Unfortunately, it was a commercial flop, and it was never released anywhere else. Worse still, it was also disowned by Chai, who went on record saying that it shouldn't be considered to be an official sequel. Since working with Delphine, Chahi has gone on to produce a number of other games as well, the most famous of which is probably Heart of Darkness for the PlayStation, a game that bears more than a few similarities to Another World, especially in its graphical style. His other games have included the God Sim From Dust, which was published by Ubisoft, and the utterly bizarre Paper Beast, which I played on PlayStation VR. Delphine's next game was Flashback, which was designed by Cuisset himself, and due to the similar graphical style, it was also mistakenly believed to be a sequel to Another World by some people. If you've not played it, it's the game that I placed at number 1 on my top 100 games for the A500 Mini, which I published on this channel back in 2022. It's also a game that I've bought many times over the years, on multiple systems, including the special edition for the Switch. In 1994 they would go on to produce the infamous fighting game Shaq Fu for the SNES and Mega Drive, although not the Amiga version, which was converted by the Dome, makers of Bob's Bad Day and Pugsy. Fade to Black, a flawed sequel to Flashback, was released in 1995 and published by EA. And then there was also the action RPG Darkstone, released in 1999. In addition to that, they've also produced a series of excellent motorbike racing games called Moto Racer. Delphine closed their doors in 2004, but Cuisset would go on to found the developer Vector Cell and produce the survival horror game Amy and the 2013 remake of Flashback, both of which were released on Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network. He would also produce the belated sequel Flashback 2, which was released towards the tail end of last year. but thankfully we're not here to talk about that one. Now though, let's check out what the gaming press had to say about Another World when they reviewed it in 1992. Like I said at the start, Another World was not a game that I personally reviewed, but I can still remember just how captivated everybody was in the Games X office when it came in. It was reviewed in issue 36 in January 1992 and received 4.5 X's out of 5. Somehow though, it didn't receive our Game of the Week award, which instead went to Gremlins Video Kid, a game that I don't think has had quite the same cultural impact. The highest score that the game received was in issue 40 of the One Amiga, an issue which also featured the game on the cover. Reviewer Paul Presley awarded it 93% and was full of praise for the game's cinematic presentation. He summed up his review by saying that it was a superb product, extremely classy and very, very playable. All the review scores were hugely positive and said similar things about the game's presentation. CU Amiga, Amiga Computing and Zero all gave it scores above 90%, with both Amiga Action and Amiga Power going just below at 89%. The lowest score that it received was 82% from Amiga Format. Reviewer Trenton Webb felt that the game was let down slightly by its gameplay, which he felt relied too heavily on hidden traps and a lack of clues. Although it must be said that I think the way he compared it to both Space Ace and Dragon's Lair was a little bit off the mark. From the 8 reviews that I found between January and April 1992, the average score was an impressive 89.3%. Now it's time to see how the game plays today. It's time for the playtest.
So here we go. This was a game that came pre-installed on the A500 Mini. It was a good choice of a title. I've honestly lost track of the number of times that I've watched this intro over the years. It's got to be well above 50. It's one of those ones that every time it starts playing, you have to let it play in its entirety, no matter how many times you've seen it previously. And that's why it was number 1 on my best 10 video that I published last Friday. Perfectly sets the scene for what's going to follow and shows off the graphical style that Delphine had came up with for this game. I think there are lots of other intros on the Amiga that have tried to capture the same essence as this. I mean, Wolfchild is one that springs to mind. But I have played this game on Xbox, on PlayStation, on Switch, on SNES, on Mega Drive, but it's always been the Amiga version that I come back to because that was the first one I played. So I'll always have a soft spot for the Amiga version. But it is honestly great the way that this game just seamlessly transitions from this intro into the game itself. So much so that I can't imagine anybody who didn't automatically just sink to the bottom and die there on the first time that they played this game. But you have literally only got 4 directions and a fire button, so the game doesn't feel the need to actually tell you that you have to push right. Everything is just instinctive. Ow, damn it. And now just run away. I didn't run away fast enough. It was on the roof. It's still there. Good job it didn't fall and kill me. And this kind of cinematic presentation had very rarely been seen back in 1990, or 1992, when this game first came out. So it's hard to really get across just what an impact this game made. See, the game doesn't tell you things like about how to create that shield. It just lets you experiment with the controls that you have. And I think that's really great. I mean, I suppose you could criticise the game for having a few too many instances like this, where if I had used too much energy power from the gun, I wouldn't have been able to shoot that dot on the wall there, meaning that I would have been completely stuck. There are a couple of other bits later on in the game where it's possible to fail completely because you haven't done something. And this is one of those areas where you would have had to rely on trial and error to determine which direction you're supposed to go. Hopefully I'll remember this, having played it so many times in the past. Is it left here? I think it is. Oh no, it wasn't left. Right, so I have to go to the right here. And now it's left, I believe. And now right, and there we go, done. Yeah, there we go. I think the graphical style of this is something that has been emulated by lots of different games over the years. Obviously, Heart of Darkness, from the same creator, did a lot of things the same as this. But I think you can also see the influence of this in games like Inside. I mean, somewhere else on our channel you can actually see a full walkthrough of this game, because I did a 100% walkthrough for the achievements on the Xbox version. And if you watch that video, you'll actually see that it is possible to complete this entire game in just over an hour. Whereas I can definitely remember that this game took me well over a week to complete first time. That's definitely worked better. Yes, there we go. That's the correct. Get a joystick instead of a joypad. This is the one where you get the guy to kill himself. I mean, everything about this game still looks fantastic 30 years after its original release. And I think that's a good place to. And I think that's a good place to end this playtest. I don't want to be giving any spoilers of the ending for anybody who's not played the game before. Let's get on to the my final thoughts in the re-review itself.
Another World has always been one of a handful of games, alongside both Metal Gear Solid 2 and Gran Turismo, as one of those games that I can remember blowing me away the first time I saw it. It still looks great all these years later too, standing as a shining example of why great art direction is far more important than graphical fidelity. I also feel that there's enough variety to the gameplay to keep you entertained throughout, with each section sticking around just the right length of time. If this game had been made today, I'm pretty sure that it would have been spoilt by lots of on-screen indicators telling you which buttons to press and when. The lack of any on-screen text is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the game's greatest strengths. The only real downside is that the game isn't really very long and comes to a pretty abrupt end. That makes it one of those rare games that leaves you wanting more. When you know what you're doing, the game will only take you probably about an hour to play through from start to finish. although I do remember that it took me well over a week to complete the first time I did it. If you are new to the game though, expect it to take a lot longer than that, and to enjoy every minute. Maybe the gameplay does rely a little bit too heavily on trial and error, but I don't think it's enough to spoil the overall experience. Another World sits pretty high up in the action-adventure game Super League, with only a few genuine classics stopping it from being any higher. It's an easy game to recommend, and one that I thoroughly enjoy going back to every couple of years just to play through it again. It's easy to see why the reviewers were so enamoured with it first time around, and it's aged incredibly well. Today I'm going to give it 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching this re-review of Another World. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed replaying the game. If it's a game that you remember playing, I'd love to hear your opinions of it in the comments. If this is your first episode in this series, there should be a link to the playlist on screen right about now, where you can find 52 other episodes to watch at your leisure. If you enjoy it, please remember to give us a like and subscribe. If you want to get involved in the vote for what games we talk about in the future, then you'll need to be a channel member, which only costs $1.99 a month, and amongst other things allows you to watch these videos early. The two games that members will be able to vote between for the next episode coming up in August will be Lemmings or Speedball 2. If you like either of those games and want to pick your favourites, then please do consider becoming a member. Until next time, happy retro gaming. Bye for now.